Hello, Frank J. Avella here with Awards Daily. Master filmmaker Terence Davies' enthralling new work, Benediction, centers on one of the great war poets of the early 20th century, Siegfried Sassoon, and his eternal journey towards a kind of redemption, as well as his ill-fated relationships, most of them with men. Jack Lowden anchors the film as the young Sassoon, and Jeremy Irvine portrays the vain and snarky film stage and music sensation Ivor Novello. Welcome, Jack and Jeremy.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. So, Jack, hanging out with Julia Roberts in Cannes, you've had quite the weekend, haven't you?
Yeah, it was. That was crazy for her.
I know. Yeah.
Well, congrats on getting the Chopard Trophy. That's well deserved.
Thank you. Jeremy has it as well.
Do you, Jeremy?
Oh, from a few years back. But yeah, I've never been invited back.
So, guys, Sassoon and Novello were two very famous but incredibly different British artists. I'd like to begin by asking you both what familiarity you initially had with your respective characters and what type of research went into your prep.
Yes, Sassoon, I knew from high school vaguely because we studied the sort of the great war poets, and he was one of the sort of great three. So I vaguely knew him. Could kind of remember that his poetry was sort of shocking, and obviously remembered his name, but then didn't really hear about him again until the script came around, and didn't appreciate him either, because when you're 14, 15 in high school reading poetry, you sort of don't really care at all. So it was great to finally be mature enough to appreciate someone like Sassoon. Yeah.
And yeah, I also did high school exams on Sassoon, and then probably thought I never wanted to hear from him ever again. Yeah, I don't know. It's nice to come back to it when you're a bit older and you've got a bit of an appreciation to it. But I didn't really know Ivor Novello other than the music awards written about him. So yeah, I started doing some research, watched a few of his films, saw that I quite liked his sort of, he wears a lot of heavy sort of silent film makeup in a couple of them, one called The Rat, which I liked, and it sort of gave this very sinister, evil sort of appearance. So yeah, I sort of took that and latched onto it, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, I just saw The Lodger again last night, and fascinating presence, isn't he?
It's weird. I mean, it's such a different style of acting to nowadays. I mean, it's sort of, I mean, nowadays it wouldn't be good acting, you know.
Yeah.
Times have changed.
Well, I imagine for both of you, working with Davies was one of the draws to wanting to be a part of this film. Can you both speak a little bit about that?
I think I came to Terence through Simon Russell Beale. I watched The Deep Blue Sea because I'd seen Simon on stage and I loved him. And I still think it's one of the best screen performances, British screen performances, certainly. That's how I came to Terence. So, and I knew his films had a real sort of arty bent and were sort of very highbrow, which is always quite a lovely thing to be invited to be part of that. So, no, it was quite a daunting task as well, which it is with any writer director, especially someone like Terence, who's felt every beat before you turn up, essentially. So it's really, you have to give yourself over to him. Yeah.
He sort of knows exactly what he wants, like a lot of the sort of, I guess, very experienced directors. You know, it's I remember the second AD, if Jack remembers this, but you have the second assistant director on set, and you keep going, you know, Terence, do you think maybe we should get some coverage? Do you think we should get some close-ups or whatever? And Terence would be like, no, I'm not going to use it. And so, you know, it's also not very many takes. When he's got it, he's got it. And, you know, so which is refreshing, actually, because filming, for anyone who hasn't been on a film set, can be incredibly boring. So, yeah, it's quite nice to sort of have to sort of fly by the seat of your pants and get it in the first few takes.
Did he change the script at all while filming was going along, or was it pretty much what you saw on the page?
Yeah. What was in the script and what we shot is what's in the film.
To the beat, I would say. To the comma and the full stops. Yeah, no, he knew exactly what he wanted.
Well, there's also so much of him, I think, in the screenplay, because if you look at the past themes he's dealt with, including his own issues with being gay, it's just fascinating to watch. Was that something he spoke to you about in terms of understanding the unsatisfying relationships that Sassoon and Novello had with men?
He sort of he didn't really talk too much. There was, like Jeremy says, we shot very quickly. There was no rehearsals really. It was sort of it was very old-fashioned, sort of know your lines and turn up, which is sort of kind of refreshing in a way. But if ever we did hit a problem, whatever, it was very evident very quickly that he had felt everything that Sassoon felt almost, and severely disliked the character of Ivor Novello. Whilst he probably loved Jeremy, he disliked that character. I think he sort of felt intimidated by those kind of people, which is why it's so authentic and brilliant. But yeah.
He's one of the few directors that I've seen regularly in floods of tears behind the monitor. And also, ecstatic at other moments. I mean, you'd be sort of on your second take thinking that you get loads more, and then Terence would appear from round the monitors in floods of tears and just go, "That's it, we got it, we're off." And, yeah.
That's rather extraordinary. Both the anti-war themes and repressed queer messages couldn't be more timely, and I wanted to talk about both of them. Society back then seemed to only inflict shame and self-hatred on queer men, although less for the wealthy. Can you both speak to how that might have informed your work?
I don't think it only inflicted it on queer men. I think the film deals with the infliction of guilt and shame on conscientious objectors as well. I think that's a massive part of the film, and something that is terrific that our generation and other generations are being reminded of that in a period where it's very easy or easier to lodge a protest against war, whether that's tweeting something or whatever. He did that at a time where he was not only in the public eye, but he was in the army, and where he was court-martialed, could have been court-martialed and ultimately shot at the same time as he could have gone to jail for 3 years for being gay. But like you say, he was sort of protected by the circles that he moved in. So it's sort of a comment on that, on sexuality at that time, but it's also, you've got to view it through the prism of the fact that it's in a very privileged part of society. So it's one aspect of it. I think. I don't think it's fair to say that it's the complete thing.
Oh no, not at all. Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I read it, there was someone who I won't name, who I definitely had in mind as sort of an old actor that I'd worked with, and who had this quality of Ivor's that, I wonder if maybe he'd been born a little later, if he wouldn't have had the same sort of, I don't really know how to put it, but you're right. It's they're all repressed people at this point, and it's even be it gay, being able to say what you think. It's a funny period of English high society, and not one that I myself would want to live through, I don't think.
Well, Jack, just piggybacking on what you said, I mean, the depictions of the anti-war soldiers, we don't get a lot of that, especially from the First World War, for sure. And you went to some dark places. Can you tell me specifically about filming those final harrowing moments right before the credits roll?
Well, that was actually the most harrowing bit about filming that was the fact that we had one go at it. That is harrowing, wow. Because it's not. I'm not a sort of I know exactly how he felt kind of actor, or I'm feeling what he felt. Impossible to do when there's 30 people, where I'm looking at 30 people panicking about the light. Very hard to sort of suddenly be drop yourself into that feeling. But it was made a lot easier by, there was a young actor who I think the shot cuts back and forth between, in a wheelchair, who was amputated from the sort of knees down, and he with the Wilfred Owen poem Disabled read over the top, he was in my eye line, and in the 4 or 5 minute, it was a long take, where I was just busting my arse to try and pull something out. There was a tiny moment where I was able to forget the sort of noise and panic and just look at this guy. And he was doing this sort of very slight rocking, as if he was really cold or whatever he was doing. And I just found that really moving and massively helpful. It was easier than you think it was, for the right reasons. Yeah.
What I loved about that moment was that it allowed you to reflect back on everything you had just watched. And it was so powerful.
Yeah, I find it really I find it a really horrible moment to watch, because it's sort of like, what is the point in anything that we do? What's the point? And I think the things that he achieved, the parapets that he stuck his head above, it's almost like it wasn't enough for him. It was never going to be enough, and it's quite such a tragic way of ending a film. Yeah.
Jeremy, you're Ivor, not the nicest person, to say the least. He's a narcissist, he's glib, so entrenched in his own entitled bubble, tossing away lovers as soon as they get close. How did you manage, and you did, to imbue him with what I saw as having this deeply hidden pain? So I felt this empathy towards him.
Well, I think what you're seeing, there was a point where I stopped trying to research into Ivor himself, because actually what we're seeing in Terence's script is Ivor through Siegfried's eyes. So, I basically took that as an opportunity to sort of, as an excuse, I suppose, to really sort of ramp up how vile and self-obsessed he was. And Terence was very generous to let me do that. It's it's always more fun. I mean, playing the nice sort of sweet, innocent guy is something that I've done a bit of, and it's nice to sort of go the other way. And I don't know, but at the same time, it's sort of touching back on what we spoke about earlier. It's these aren't necessarily very happy people. I think what really I was trying to fix it by getting as famous as he can and getting all the adulation that he can have, but fundamentally he's not as respected as Siegfried is, and that goes to show, today his name sort of died out, and Siegfried's lived on.
Yeah, although he's being brought back thanks to Gosford Park and now this film. I think the moment where we learn about his relationship with Bobby Andrews, whether it was a satisfying one or not, was a major point in the film.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's. Yeah, it's just a load of people not being able to be themselves, which is very sad, and and it still happens today.
Well, something that Terence does, he recreates the 20s differently than we're used to seeing. It's fun and carefree, but his 20s are fun and carefree because people are trying desperately not to think about the horror that the war has wrought, and I found that extraordinary. I don't know if there's a question there, but if you guys want to comment on it.
I think the amazing thing about him that hit me when I watched the end, for example, is that the guilt, and he writes about it, the guilt that he felt about making it through the First World War and not dying, and sort of not. But I don't know if it's in the film at all. But I quite like, because I read all of his war diaries. And I wonder if there's a tiny part of him that wished he had died, out of the fact that his work would be instantly far more romanticized and celebrated, because he was incredibly blunt and honest in his diaries about his vanity and jealousy, which is why I adored him, and it's not necessarily in the film. That's something I would have loved to put in the film, but I did wonder if that plays a part with someone like that, who's got to live for another 40 years almost, with his contemporaries being sort of canonized to huge success and sort of mystique because they died in the First World War. So he sort of lives with the legacy of the war through anybody that would live through a war, but also as an artist who made his name by the war. It's just quite a funny thought.
Well, I found it. He speaks of suicide in the film, and I felt the possibility was always there. Do you think there's a reason he never went that far?
I don't. I think sometimes I think he was very vain. He was very vain. I think he's probably the kind of guy that would love to have been at his own funeral, you know. So I don't think that's something that he would have wanted to miss out on, so to speak. I don't think it's something that he was ready for. I think by the fact that he lived all the way into the 1960s and the things he tried, you know, converting to Catholicism is an example of how he never wanted to give up, that guy. I don't think he ever was ready to give up because he kept trying different things.
Well, Jack's obviously Sassoon becomes this haunted, irascible older man, played brilliantly by Peter Capaldi. Did you see any scenes of Peter while you were filming, and did that at all inform your Sassoon?
No, I'd shot most of my stuff by the time I met Peter for the first time. It was like week 5 or 6, met Peter on a makeup truck, and all we did was sort of swap notes about our accent because he's Scottish as well. And he actually had recordings of Sassoon reading poetry, which I never knew about, which was a pain in the arse that I only found out after I'd shot everything. But you couldn't, but the way that he spoke poetry in those recordings, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it wouldn't have worked for a modern audience, because the way that they do that thing where they sort of speak like that, and it just wouldn't have washed. I think it would pull a modern audience out of it.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? The level of research when you're doing
research.
I think I used to do, you know, just reams of stuff, and my scripts used to be full of notes and blah blah. And now, you know, I highlight my lines and that's it. And actually, I think I'm probably a lot better for it.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, getting into the world of bright young things, was that fun?
It certainly was. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's great. I just getting to play getting to play a sort of the character sort of that sort of large and sort of, I guess, sort of not so naturalistic is it's great. I think we had the only part I can say that I found a bit daunting was I'd only ever sung in one film before, and it was all pre-recorded, and then this one they wanted me to sing live on set. And the downside of that is you get given a little earpiece with the music, so you're singing and you can hear the backing track and you're playing piano, but no one else can. Everyone else just sees you singing to yourself, looking like an absolute maniac.
Well, yeah, I have my Mamma Mia question prepared. Jack, in terms, I mean, Sassoon did experience some joy, I would say, in those early years.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at the people that he hung about with. I was saying this earlier, like, it makes you think. Look at your friends now in the circles that you move in, and think, what a boring bunch of arseholes compared to, like, you know, he would sit at dinner with Ivor Novello, Lawrence of Arabia, Winston Churchill, you know, like ridiculous, you know. And it sort of really, that was one of the major things I grasped from this film, was it really took stock of the people that I keep company with, and I think I've got to improve them sort of tenfold in terms of.
How has it changed, Jack? Who have you got rid of?
There's not been as much of a cull as I want yet, but I need to hang around some cooler places, I think.
Yeah, I always get that. People go, "Oh, so you know who are your famous friends?" I go, "I see them at work." Like, oh, can't be hard.
Famous people are horrible. Yeah.
Except for Julia Roberts, I would think.
Except for Julia Roberts, yeah. She's got no choice. I will bring her every day.
Now that you have permission, yes. Jack, I'm loving Slow Horses. I want you to speak a little bit about what that experience was like. I'm on episode 3 and just thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different tack. That it was great fun. It was a long job. We shot it right after this, so it was a very weird thing to suddenly walk onto. But I loved it. It doesn't take itself seriously at all, which is quite refreshing and fun to do. So yeah, and the people that I got to work with again are just daft. Some of the people I get to just sit and watch act. That's why I love doing it. I routinely go on set early on that job and just sit and watch Gary and Kristen do a scene or something like that.
Yeah, they're both extraordinary.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I honestly think Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again is one of the best musicals to come around in a long time. I'm not joking about that. I really do. What are your thoughts about a possible third film? Because I've heard buzzing from other cast members.
I mean, they wouldn't have to ask me twice, or actually even pay me. Actually, I'd probably just go and do it. I mean, it remains and will always remain the best paid holiday I've ever had.
Yeah. What was it in Greece? Was it in Greece?
We were in Croatia, and they sort of took over a whole island. So it was just. I mean, I got picked up for work on a speedboat. It was with fucking Pierce Brosnan on the front of it. It was wild. It was sort of like an episode of Love Island, but we're not all fucking each other. and with more alcohol. It's basically what it was. Right. Yeah. So a lot more drinking and less, but we're not shagging each other. But otherwise, yeah, it was great.
It's amazing. Well, you're both very eclectic actors who seem to choose these challenging roles. How do you go about deciding what you want to do versus something you might get offered?
I always get alarm bells if I'm straight offered something, to be honest. That's normally when I know that they've probably been to a few people first. It's normally the ones you have to chase down that tend to be the good ones. But I don't know if Jack probably maybe has a slightly different experience. But
that's very true. That's very true. Yeah. Why am I being offered this? Yeah. Yeah. Who's dead? Yeah. No. Yeah. No. It's I've only sort of really recently, and probably not even fully, gotten to a stage where I can sort of pick, so to speak. I mean, this job, Benediction, was quite a long time ago now. It was, I mean, I got it in like 2019 or something like that, and because of COVID and whatever. So, yeah, I'm still at a place where if I get offered the job, great. That's probably the first marker, and then hopefully it's a good role. But yeah, get into the hallowed ground of all you get to do is pick and choose, and just rock up to people and go, yo, you want to do Hamlet, or whatever. Yeah. That a great place.
I think it's a surprisingly small number of people who actually get to do that. I mean, I'm always amazed that I'll meet someone at a dinner or something, and they'll talk about having auditioned for something. I'm like going, you still audition? Like, I think the really good stuff, everyone wants it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, can you both speak to your stage roots and how that affects what you do on screen?
Yeah, I mean, that's all I did. I didn't go on camera till I was like 24, 23, 24. I found it absolutely terrifying. Didn't know what I was doing. It's still kind of in that place, but I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand why you'd want to act without an audience. Doesn't make any sense to me. Why you'd want to do something in front of act on a building site, essentially. Why would you want to do that? So I still find it very bizarre, but I'm learning to love the process more, and the finished product's obviously great because you can watch it, but you can't do that with stage. So, but I think stage gives you a good grounding of being a lot more self-reliant. I think in film, your independence is taken away from you, so to speak, because there's so many people that are better at those things than you are, and technical people. Whereas on stage, you're kind of all up to you, and just the repetitive nature of stage gives you good stamina, I think. But yeah, no, I wouldn't have changed that for the world. I miss stage every day.
You'll go back to it though, no?
Oh yeah, 100%. If they'll have me back.
Yeah. Jeremy?
I didn't have as much experience as Jack, but started off doing it. But I think it's the time when you get to learn if what you're doing is actually any good. It's horrible acting on sets. I mean, it's so lonely acting on film sometimes because you've no idea if what you're doing is utter shit or if it's good, and the crew aren't laughing at the gags. The crew aren't getting emotional when you're doing something that should be emotional, and as an audience you do get that. So yeah, I like to pop back every few years and sort of just check in and find out what I'm doing wrong.
Well, Jeremy, I actually interviewed you a number of years back in Stonewall. in
Oh, right.
Stonewall itself
Right.
for
Yeah.
Stonewall. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Slightly contentious film that turned out to be. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you were one of the only good things about Stonewall. That's what I'll say.
Oh, that's very sweet. I mean, I've stayed very close with the director, Roland. It was a real baby of his, and you know, it's very difficult to make films like that, and you know, with hindsight, I'm sure if things would have been addressed slightly differently. But yeah, it was a very eye-opening experience for me, and I found it very educational. The both the filming of it and the sort of the reaction it got from certain communities as well. So you know, it was a good learning curve.
Oh, I mean, I think it was a beautiful film to watch, for sure.
Yeah. No. I mean, look. I mean, the thing is with every project is you as the actor, you come in and you pour your heart out and do the best job that you can, and that's sort of it. And you know, it's you know, it's very tough when you're. I just think it's a very sensitive subject and very difficult to get right. And I think, you know, Roland sort of, this was his, Roland Emmerich, that was his sort of passion project.
Yeah.
And I know how upset he was when, you know, when he found out it hadn't made everyone happy. But then, you know, it's so incredibly difficult to do.
You can also never make everyone happy, and nowadays, most especially, you can't make everyone happy.
Absolutely, well, absolutely. But you know, doesn't mean we shouldn't all try. But, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think it's best to just do what you guys are doing, which is, you know, doing your best work, and, you know, putting it out there. And those who aren't happy, you know, no offense, but fuck them.
Well, no. Well, I'm not saying that. I'm definitely that is not.
You're not saying it.
Right, I'm certainly not. But you know, it's. I'm sure Jack would say this as well. You've no idea how a film's going to turn out when you're shooting it. I absolutely no idea. I've done things that I thought were going to be the biggest piles of shit, and they turned out great. And I've done ones that I thought were going to be great, and I've watched it in the cinema with my head in my hand. So you just don't know. But you show up on the day, do the best you can, and then try and forget about it until it comes out.
Yeah, or until this promotional blitzkrieg, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you both tell me what you're doing next?
I'm doing a thing for the BBC called The Gold, about the gold bullion robbery in the 1980s. We're in the middle of shooting that just now. Yeah.
Oh, no. Who's the director?
One of the directors is Anil Kharia, who just won the Oscar for Best Short with Riz Ahmed.
Yeah.
He's one of them.
Shooting that with my fiance's sister.
What?
Charlotte Spencer.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Yeah, redheaded.
Yeah. I don't really have many scenes with her, but yeah, I've bumped
I
into her.
know you're both in it, but yeah.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Wow.
We'll talk more about that when we're not on a.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, what are you up to?
So I'm shooting a movie. I think which starts in a month or so. So at the moment, I'm having a lovely time. I'm just sort of swanning about, and then there's a sort of a TV series which I've been attached to for a while, but I think they're planning to go in the fall. So it's sort of a superhero thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm running around in tights, I think, fighting aliens, something insane like that.
Well, that's new to your resume, so that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Guys, I have to tell you, I saw Benediction back in Toronto when it first premiered, and I thought it was extraordinary then. But rewatching it just, I think, really resonates with so much of what's going on right now in the world, not just with the war, what's happening with Russia, but you know, the themes right now, and it can be seen as depressing, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it more like we're all on our journeys, and Siegfried was on his journey, and it's just very interesting to see where he started and then where he ended up, and I think it helps us reflect on that.
Yeah, I agree. I've only watched it once, and my feeling was, Jesus Christ, we all get old. Like that really, I really got to the end and went, yeah, like it all finishes at one point, you know, and you can't go back and redo it. I just think to me that was the overarching feeling at the end. It's kind of terrifying. Yeah.
Well, guys, I want to thank you. Keep giving us this great work that we get to watch. I really appreciate it.
It's great to speak to you again. Thanks a lot.
Likewise. Take care. Have a great day, guys.
Bye now.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.